Right. So we are going to talk about Poland, and Poland is an interesting case in this world we're living in because they put forward a policy that I think is a bit sensible, but it has been portrayed in somewhat a misleading light in several ways. So first of all, a lot of people are saying that Poland is banning application asylums full stop. It's not exactly like that. What they're doing is for 60 days, they are restricting asylum applications primarily from men that come from the Poland-Belarus border.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
That's a lot more limited and less triumphant than I saw people reporting it on.
exactly. So they're going to do that for 60 days, and we don't know whether they're going to continue it or not. My view is it's better than I expected from Donald Tusk, but there are several concerns about his stance across the years, but also his platform. So they voted for this, and we have here the President Duda signed the new bill today, which makes it possible for Poland to deny all asylum requests by the illegal migrants trying to break through Poland's border wall with Belarus. Right. So what is interesting here is that
I saw that.
The border between Poland and Belarus is very turbulent when it comes to migration, and one would expect it not to be, but it is, because as far as migration flows are concerned, Russia and Belarus are using migration flows in Europe as a means of hybrid warfare, and the Polish are excellent at pointing that out. Now, there's a myth in especially right-wing circles that says that Russia would never be behind something like that, but that's a myth.
Obviously.
Yep. Okay, good. Right. So we have several.
A hostile nation might send hostile populations into our countries. Who would have thought?
I mean, you're taking the conversation to another side. I'm not saying that Russia doesn't have some policies which may be good on this, but on this case.
Oh no! I'm not. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're disagreeing. I'm just recontextualizing your comment and what I want to say. So the Polish are persistently highlighting this. So we had this video that went viral here a few days ago. We have people trying to cross the border from Belarus. We see them here. They're trying to opening a hole in the border, and they come in, and the Polish border patrol comes and arrests them. And it went viral. It got 26.4 million views. You see the Polish guards are coming, and they have been accused several times for pushbacks that are considered to be against the ECHR rules.
Right.
Now, my view is that when appeals to the ECHR take place, it's mostly the people who are doing the appeal. Yeah. Now, that's a conversation for another time, but there are several clauses within the ECHR. For instance, in Article 8, when they're talking about the right to family life, that they don't suggest that there is an unconditional right to not get deported. They are conditionalizing a right to not get deported according to respect for public security, the common good, all the things we're talking about. Right. So the situation there is turbulent for a long time, and last June, about 9 months ago, there was a soldier who died from a knife attack at the border. It's not the forest with Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin, where everything is really peaceful and nothing bad is ever happening. It's actually a very violent situation in a very turbulent place. Right. What is interesting is that the border is here. For those for whom geography isn't your stronger card, the border is here. It's literally in the heart of Northern Europe. And please, could we zoom out? Yes. So it's literally here. And what is interesting is that the main routes for migration are here: the eastern route, the western route through Spain, the central route through Italy, and the eastern route through Greece. What on earth happens here? because the Polish are correct in saying that the Russians and the Belarusians are using migration flows in hybrid warfare. And I have these stats from the European Council that talk about arrivals of illegal migration. They call it irregular, but let's say it as it is. And they highlight only these routes, which is interesting. But what this whole thing shows is that despite some voices within the EU that are saying that this shouldn't take place, it seems like the only way for Europeans to do something about open borders is to link it to Russia. And this is what happens in the Polish case. Now, I have some, let's say, articles here by the Telegraph about Poland. And if you see just the titles, say here, Polish border stabbed to death by a migrant on Belarus border. Here we have the previous prime minister of Poland, who says Muslim migrants are destroying European culture. We have here, this was an article by Stephen Edgington.
He's written a few on it by the looks of it.
Yes, also here, Britain can learn from Poland's rejection of illegal migration and globalization.
Right, Steve.
Yeah, does great work, friend of the show.
Yeah,
and like
good.
the UK, Poland does not want multiculturalism. So they're pretty switched on this issue for their border. Now, depending on who you ask, they may be more switched on about the other routes in Europe or not. But it looks like there are several considerations when it comes to Donald Tusk and his whole stance towards multiculturalism. Speaking of multiculturalism, we have a new interview gone out with returning guest Dr. Benedict Beckeld about the dangers of multiculturalism. And we're talking about several things, particularly the tendency of Europeans to view other religions in terms of the Protestant-Catholic divide, which led to the separation of church and state after 130 years of bloodshed within Christianity. So when we're talking about other religions, the question arises as to why would we want to do that, even if in 130 years things are going to be okay? Why would we want to go through that stage? Right. So there are several considerations about Tusk, because a lot of people may jump and say, well, he may be our guy. We don't know. But there are several indications that he is definitely the progressive side.
Right.
So, for instance, he has been accused for promoting hate speech laws, especially having to do with offenses and the trans lobby. He does seem to be a bit to the left on several key issues. And this,
I think he was campaigning as essentially a moderate return to normality after the PIS government.
Yes, that was his campaign, and he is on the center-right government, and also in the European People's Party. That is the, within quotation marks, center-right. That has been left Europe's borders open.
Yes,
to a very large extent.
I will say I remember looking into that and being a bit disappointed in the PIS government in the first place because there were corrupt elements of the government who were going into North Africa and selling free, easy visas to people who wanted to cross the border into Europe themselves. So Poland's government in any configuration is not perfect.
I mean, every government isn't.
Yes.
Any government is.
But that was particularly disappointing coming from them.
Well, you have a point. Right, here we have a political article that is lamenting Tusk's decision to go forward with that policy. And they're saying here, Poland's government aims to temporarily suspend the right of arrivals to claim asylum, even though that clashes with both international law and European Union rules. That's from October 14, 2024. That's about 5 months ago. But Prime Minister Donald Tusk insists he will not backtrack. As he says, it is our right and our duty to protect the Polish and European border. Its security will not be negotiated with anyone, Tusk said on social media on Monday afternoon. Right, so what is interesting is that this seems like, to my mind, this seems like closed borders for me, but open borders for thee. Because he has been heavily involved with the European People Party. I think he was its president at some point. Now it's the party of Ursula von der Leyen, who is you could say she occupies a high position in
She's great. She's great.
Lovely,
yeah.
lovely.
So, and he says, well, anything my group, my team was saying about our enemies, I'm not going to care at all about it. I'm going to have closed borders for me.
Interesting.
It's good for Poland.
I was going to say, it's better than lots of Western governments do.
Yeah, it's good for Poland, but also I think that a lot of people should follow his example and maybe say, well, maybe we should guard Europe. Right. So he says, Tusk, a former president of the European Council and a key leader in the center-right European People's Party that also includes Ursula von der Leyen, is reflecting a harsher tone on migration sweeping the continent. A tough border policy is also part of Tusk's effort to ensure that his Civic Coalition party is in sole position to win next year's presidential election. We need to bear this in mind. Right, so we have here another article by RTE, says Poland to adopt decree suspending right to seek asylum, and they're talking about how Poland and the other EU states along the bloc's eastern edge have accused Russia and its ally Belarus of orchestrating a campaign of pushing thousands of migrants and over the borders in recent years. Right, so why is it a problem for the center-right of Europe when all these migration flows come from Russia and Belarus, but it isn't when they come from all the other routes?
Why is it a problem there, but not anywhere else?
Yes.
Well,
so what they're doing is they are talking about Poland in the same way we are talking about Europe.
They're taking a very parochial view of the problem.
Yes, but that is really interesting because all it is, it seems that their only concern is the origin, who is behind those migration flows. And I will say, yes, I do think Russia and Belarus, and in this case, I'd say it's mostly Russia, does want to conduct hybrid warfare to Europe, because Russia has a power structure that is very forward-looking. That's a feature of countries that don't have frequent, let's say, change of who occupies the top spot. They have decades of policy in advance.
Yeah, sounds kind of sensible when you put it like that.
Policy orientation. So why is it a problem when the same people, let's say, come from the Belarus border, Poland-Belarus border, but it isn't a problem for Europe and for Donald Tusk's mates when they come from every other place? And question, why is it the case that they think that only Putin represents a threat to the EU? Because I agree that to an extent he does, and Putin's Russia does represent threats to Europe, but they're not the only threats. And I'll just share an anecdote. I've spoken to several people close to me, and I'm saying, okay, you're really anxious about Putin's Russia. Yeah, you are. Tell me why. I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong, but tell me why. They list all sorts of considerations, and I say, yeah, I agree with you. Why don't you apply that to other areas of the world that are behind these migration flows? So I think what's going on here with Poland is a good wake-up call. It's good if in several places people like Donald Tusk and other European leaders are stepping up and say, no, I am going to guard my country's borders. It's good if they start doing it, but we shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture. And it isn't just the issue of where they come from. The issue is saving Europe.
Yes, and you are right. There seems to be a problem with the entire European establishment, which is that when it comes to fighting back Russia, all of a sudden they're starting to put armies together. Now that America looks like it's starting to pull out, they're starting to put more money into their own defense. I think that those in a vacuum are not bad things. It's the fact that at the same time, most of these countries, their leaders, are more than eager to say, well, we need to protect ourselves from Putin, while at the same time destroying their own countries from the inside with rapid demographic change, multiculturalism, and everything else that's going on.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, that's an issue. That's a welcome move, I think, by Donald Tusk, and that's a good policy, but it should be extended to all the borders, not just the Polish, Belarusian borders. And also it shows a lot about the hypocrisy of the EU, because what Donald Tusk is doing here, well, some of them are against it, but he does it regardless, and I think he's right on this. But the problem isn't just Putin's Russia. There are all sorts of threats to Europe.
Too much of a convenient narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so,
you
it's very monolithic. It's just, we only have one problem, and let's solve this problem, and it's going to be heaven on earth. It's not going to be heaven on earth. There are all sorts of problems that Europe faces, and they should take care of them.
If you want to support our work, you can always sign up to the website and watch Bo's series, Epochs. This one, he's talking about Lawrence of Arabia with Luca Johnson. You've got to watch it. Look at that thumbnail. And if you want to see all the other things that we're putting out, you can always follow us on X. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.